Scary telling.
In the end, I was reduced to a shell of my former self, convulsing violently on the bed. My vital organs had been sliced open by the sharp bones, and I took my last breath as my body finally gave in to the relentless torture. Looking back on it now, I can't believe that something like this could happen to someone. It's like a nightmare come to life, a fate worse than anything I could have ever imagined. But the memory of what happened to me will stay with me forever, haunting me with the bone-chilling fear that this could happen to anyone at any time. As my body was consumed by the bone-wear stage of my illness, my family watched helplessly as I convulsed on the bed, my body racked with pain. The pain was so intense that it was almost unbearable. It felt like every inch of my body was on fire, like I was being consumed from the inside out. My family tried to comfort me, to ease my pain in any way they could, but there was nothing they could do to stop the relentless march of my illness. As the hours passed, my breathing grew more and more shallow until it was just a ragged whisper in the darkness. I knew that my time was running out, that there was nothing anyone could do to save me. Looking back on it now, I can't believe how quickly it all happened. One moment, I was a healthy, happy person, and the next, I was lying on my deathbed, consumed by a terrifying illness that no one could explain. But as the end drew near, I found a strange sort of peace. I knew that my suffering would soon be over, that I would be able to rest at last. And then, finally, it was over. My body went limp, and I took my final breath. My family gathered around me, their faces etched with grief, as they said their final goodbyes. Looking back on it now, I can't help but wonder what could have caused such a terrifying illness. But I know that the memory of what happened to me will stay with my family forever, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing every moment we have. In the aftermath of my death, my family was left with many unanswered questions. They had watched helplessly as I was consumed by a terrifying illness, one that had left doctors and medical experts baffled and powerless to help. They wondered what had caused my illness, whether it was something that could happen to anyone or if I was somehow uniquely vulnerable. They reached out to medical experts, hoping for answers, but none were forthcoming. They conducted their own research, looking for any clues that might help them understand what had happened to me, but the trail always led to dead ends. As the months passed, my family struggled to come to terms with their loss. They knew that they would never have all the answers they were looking for, and that the memory of my suffering would haunt them forever. But they also knew that they had to find a way to move forward, to live their lives in a way that honored my memory and the time we had together. In the end, my family decided to channel their grief into something positive. They started a charity in my name, one that would help raise awareness for rare and hard-to-diagnose illnesses like mine. They worked tirelessly to spread the word, to help people understand the importance of early diagnosis and to push for more research into the causes of these terrible illnesses. And while they knew that they would never be able to bring me back, they also knew that they could help prevent others from suffering the same fate. Looking back on it now, I know that my family's work has made a difference. They have helped to raise awareness and to push for more research into rare and hard-to-diagnose illnesses. And while I may be gone, I know that my memory will live on through the work of my family and the countless others who have been affected by these terrible illnesses. In the end, I know that I was loved, and that is all that truly matters. I can't explain why, but there's something about the moon that draws me in. Every night, I find myself climbing up onto my roof, gazing up at the glowing orb in the sky, waiting for something to happen. At first, I thought it was just a passing phase, a weird quirk that I'd eventually grow out of. But the more time I spent up there, the more I realized that there was something different about the moon. One night, as I was lying on the roof, staring up at the moon, I heard a faint whisper in my ear. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but the more I listened, the more I realized that the whisper seemed to be coming from the moon itself. I strained my ears, trying to make out what the whisper was saying. It was like trying to hear a conversation from the next room over, just out of reach. But there was no denying that something was there, trying to communicate with me. The next night, I climbed up onto the roof again, this time with a sense of anticipation in my heart. I waited, listening for the whisper, but it didn't come. I felt disappointed, like I had missed out on something important. But the following night, the whisper returned, stronger and more insistent this time. It was like a voice in my head, but it didn't sound like my own thoughts. It was otherworldly, ethereal, and it filled me with a sense of awe and fear. I started spending more and more time on the roof, waiting for the moon to speak to me. Sometimes the whisper would be barely audible, just a faint murmur in the back of my mind. Other times, it would be loud and clear, like the moon was right there beside me, whispering into my ear. I tried to ignore the pull of the moon, to convince myself that I was just being silly, that there was nothing special about it. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important about the moon, something that I was meant to understand. As the days passed, I found myself becoming more and more obsessed with the moon. I would spend hours up on the roof, staring up at it, trying to decipher the whispers. I stopped eating and sleeping properly, consumed by a sense of urgency that I couldn't explain. My friends started to worry about me, but I couldn't bring myself to care. All that mattered was the moon and the secrets that it held. I knew that I was being consumed by something beyond my understanding, but I couldn't stop myself. And so, night after night, I climbed up onto the roof, waiting for the moon to speak to me, waiting to uncover the mysteries that it held. The whispers from the moon continued to grow louder and more insistent, until I could hear them even when I wasn't on the roof. They were like a constant background hum, a hum that filled me with both awe and terror. As I listened to the whispers, I began to have vivid dreams about the moon. In my dreams, the moon spoke to me directly, revealing secrets that no one else knew. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my heart racing, my mind consumed by a sense of purpose. It was like the moon was calling me, urging me to do something important. At first, I tried to resist the pull, to convince myself that I was just imagining things. But the more I fought it, the stronger the pull became. And so, I found myself spending even more time on the roof, waiting for the moon to speak to me. Sometimes, the whispers would be so loud that I would have to cover my ears, afraid that I would lose my mind. My friends and family started to notice that something was wrong. I was always tired, always distracted, always talking about the moon. They tried to get me to talk about what was going on, but I couldn't find the words to explain it. One night, as I lay on the roof, listening to the whispers, I felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through my body. It was like a bolt of lightning, filling me with a sense of purpose and destiny. The moon's voice grew stronger, urging me to do something important, something that would change the course of my life forever. I felt like I was being chosen, like I was meant to do something great. And so, I listened to the moon's voice, and I began to do things that I never thought possible. I took risks, I pushed myself, I followed my instincts without question. I felt like I was on the cusp of something incredible, something that would change the world. My friends and family started to worry even more, but I didn't care. I was consumed by the moon's power, and nothing else mattered. I stopped going to work, stopped talking to my friends, stopped eating and sleeping properly. It was like I was living in a dream that was becoming more and more real with each passing day. And the moon's voice was always there, urging me on, pushing me to go further, to reach higher. I knew that I was on the brink of something incredible, something that would change the course of my life forever. And I was willing to do whatever it took to reach that goal. The more I listened to the moon's voice, the more it demanded of me. It was like a constant pressure in the back of my mind, urging me to do things that I knew were wrong. At first, I tried to resist the moon's demands, but it was like fighting against a force of nature. The moon's power was too great, too overwhelming for me to resist. I started to have dark thoughts, thoughts of violence and destruction. The moon's voice would whisper to me, telling me to do terrible things, things that I knew were wrong but couldn't help but consider. It was like a tug-of-war between my conscience and the moon's power, and I didn't know which side would win. I felt like I was losing control of myself, like I was becoming a puppet under the moon's spell. My friends and family grew more and more worried about me, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The moon's voice was all that mattered, all that consumed my thoughts and actions. I stopped going to therapy, stopped taking my medication, stopped listening to anyone who tried to tell me what to do. The moon's power was too great, too all-consuming for me to think about anything else. And then, one night, the moon's voice grew louder and more insistent than ever before. It was like a hurricane in my mind, tearing apart everything that I thought I knew.